Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 2322 North Irvine Street here in Cornelius. I describe everything as if you're standing in the street facing the front door of the home. So we are sitting out in front of the patio. We're to the left of the front door, out in front of the big window here. Maybe just a few inches past the patio, you've got a 3-inch ABS cleanout, sticks way out of the ground. Can't miss it. We're going to check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. We're getting in here just after a home inspection's finished up. Lots of water's been down the line, but we're going to introduce some more water to the line here in just a moment. Alright, we're going to zero out here at the base of the cleanout. Hard dive right out of the gate here. Get some water running down the line here in just a moment. And it looks like we're just swapping over to 4-inch 3034 PVC. A reasonably clean sewer line. My camera's kind of riding the sidewall right now. Little bit of grease built up in the flow line. We'll see how all that looks on the way out when the line's completely drained off here. We are going through some level of standing water right now. Again, another spot. I'm also pushing what looks like a wipe or something like that through the pipe right now. We'll do a couple flushes of water down the pipe here just to clear this gunk out of the way. It's entirely possible that that debris right there is what was causing the water to stand to begin with. One of the reasons you want to avoid balled up toilet paper, not that necessarily is balled up, some of it did look that way, doesn't travel well. But another reason why, going back to what I was mentioning about the grease, it's about the best thing you can do, and about the only thing you can do as a homeowner to maintain good flow through your line, is try to avoid cooking oil, fats in general, from going down your sink as much as possible. Especially with these new low flow toilets, it's very rare, unless you have an extraordinarily steep sewer line or very short run, that when you flush your toilet, the solids go from A to B in one toilet flush. It's very common stuff stops up, 30, 40 feet down line, and then it's, showers draining, sinks draining, other toilet flushes that inevitably convey everything through the sewer line. So what you don't want is when that toilet paper goes down line, especially if it's a balled up wad of toilet paper, and or especially when improper things do go down line occasionally, you don't want it stopping up in a big pile of grease, because the paper products will become one with the grease. They get impregnated with grease and essentially become waterproof and don't disintegrate properly, but they also start building up in the flow line, which creates for just a malleable, bumpy flow line that's more prone to buildup occurring. So anyway, there's the main there at about, we're going to call it 42 feet. We're close enough. This line in particular ties directly into the manhole. About every 3 to 5 homes on the street will do that. Most don't. But anytime you have a manhole convergence like this, it's even more important to avoid improper things like wipes, paper towels, and flushable wipes. I do not recommend they go down your sewer. Manholes are designed essentially to gather debris because it's an easy location for people to get down into the line and clear them out. So if you get someone with a bad habit that ties into a manhole putting wipes down the line, they will build up like crazy. You can end up with a manhole backup that backs up multiple houses at once. So anyway, keep the grease out of your line, and ideally keep it to just folded toilet paper. Not a big fan of flushable wipes, or obviously the other stuff like regular wipes, paper towels. Anyway, thus far, half decent looking sewer line, but we'll give it another good look over here once the thing fully drains off. We're going to go locate, and I'm also going to put some more water down line just to help clear any other gunk out that's in the flow line. All right, just put about 4 gallons of water down the line at once there to help bust things loose. Yeah, if you go stand out in the street or facing the house, if you were to draw a straight line off the front left, straight line out to the road from the front left corner of kind of the patio area, the house kind of extends the left beyond that, but front left corner in general of either location, yeah, that's kind of a general idea. If you go straight out the road there, you'll see a manhole. The line kind of veers towards the left side property line, then straightens out and shoots out to the street, so it's not a dead straight running sewer. Anyway, that manhole that's out there, there's a couple little repair patches next to it in the street, and it's the manhole that has just 2 vent holes in it. That's the manhole your line ties into, in case you're curious where things go. There's still a little bit of water trickling through the line here, but just about done draining. So it looks like right here around 35 feet approximately, 36 feet. I think we're starting to get back into some, albeit this right now, my camera right now is kind of upside down. Thus far, the water we're going through is like a 1/16 of an inch of water. It'll probably get a little deeper than that here. You can see how there's those grease ridges on either side of the water line. So whether you have a 1/16 of an inch of standing water or 3 inches of standing water, grease buildup always concentrates, and or improper items in general, things that don't disintegrate, but especially grease, concentrates when it hits any amount of standing water at all. That belly there is actually quite rinky-dink. It's teeny. Very, very small. So I apologize if I'm repeating myself. I've done over 25,000 sewer scopes at this point in my career. Lots and lots of drain cleaning. And anyway, where I typically just start to consider repairs on bellies is once there is at least an inch of standing water that's static with no water running at all for a minimum of 5 feet. That's where I start to consider repairs. Most of those bellies at that breaking point I don't recommend repairs on unless they are very close proximity to the home. And or even worse is when you get that kind of standing water, or worse, in old rough pipe materials like concrete and cast iron that have really rough pipe walls. That creates a coupling effect of slower moving debris running into rough pipe walls that snag that slow moving debris going to the line. So I am going to recommend cleaning. You've got some pretty thick buildup in that location there. It's inch thick on either side, so the line's constricted down. But that area there can be managed buildup wise simply by living habits. If you're not putting grease and improper stuff down the line, you're not feeding the pipe anything that can build up. So anyway, and a belly like this is not the kind of belly I would ever expect to see backup debris out, evidence, things like that. It's just teeny. There was a little bit of staining at the top of the pipe there, not thick stuff. When I start seeing toilet paper scraps hanging from the top of the line, stuff like that, that's where things become more concerning. But I've also got to have a big enough problem to go with it that justifies repairs. But that belly there is very, very small. About a 1/16, maybe a 1/4 inch at its worst. I don't even think it hits that point. Very small. Anyway, I imagine if there was a blockage there at some point, and it's very hard to tell. Anytime a line ties into a manhole, especially a manhole, they're much more likely to get the brunt end of a main lateral backup because of that configuration. So that, in fact, right here, my camera is upside down right now. The bottom of the screen is the top of the pipe. You can see that staining right there on the bottom of the screen where the flow line's nice, clean black plastic. The top's got a little skiff of debris on it. That right there is the evidence of a past blockage, and there's no underlying problem there whatsoever to cause one. That was just simply caused by too much stuff going down the line at once. And I know that's just it's a common thing you see. You've got a big, nice, clean break between the belly and that location. That's just from someone wadding up too much stuff. So if someone put enough down the line to cause a blockage where there's zero structural defect whatsoever, not terribly surprising to see a little skiff like that out where the belly's at, especially with the amount of grease buildup that was in there. You get a kid flushing 13 balls of toilet paper down the line with a bunch of grease buildup, or worse, wipes or something like that. It's a scenario like that where you could ever get a blockage out of something like that. It would take heavy abuse. We just went backwards there through the foundation wall, Everything past that point where I stopped is all exposed piping in the crawl space. That's stuff the home inspector looks at for leaks. I am going to recommend cleaning on the line, though. I think that would be a worthwhile thing to do here. Ideally, I would like to see that cleaning go at least back to the foundation wall. The grease buildup is certainly thicker on the exterior than it is going back into the house. Not every person running a jet will jet backwards, but if you can get it, great. And I do recommend a rescope after the cleaning is done. Sometimes debris can conceal things. You can have issues going underneath it, although generally speaking, I can usually see evidence of it even when there is buildup, but sometimes it can obscure your view of things. But more than anything, it's just to show that the line has been cleaned out thoroughly. There's no buildup in there. So, and then it's kind of a general rule of thumb I tell most people to live by that mitigates almost all grease buildup from occurring. Again, obviously you want to avoid things that are improper. Wipes, paper towels, flushable wipes I include in that same category. Tampons are another one. Grease, cooking oil, stuff like that. But grease is the main culprit that gunks lines up. And anyway, when you're doing your cooking with your frying pans and whatnot, if you take that pan when it's hot and there's enough grease or oil on there that if you were to turn the pan sideways like you're going to dump stuff off the pan, if there's enough on there that it runs off the pan in beads or worse, flows off the pan, it's at that point you want to do something about it. What you want to do is let the pan cool down, wipe it out with a paper towel, or scrape the grease or oil off into a garbage can after it's cooled. Or while it's still hot and liquid, you can pour it into a glass jar or metal can, something that won't melt under high temperature. You know, a thin little coating of PAM spray, for instance, is not a big deal. Use hot water and soap. That'll handle that just fine. It's when you're putting real quantity down the line that was where it gets you. No amount of hot water and soap will handle that. It doesn't sit on the stuff long enough to do anything. So anyway, once you get the line cleaned out, you can mitigate the buildup entirely just by your living habits. Bellies like that do not just cause buildup on their own to proper items. It, generally speaking, requires improper stuff or very heavy abuse with you know, if you're flushing, again, 14 balls of toilet paper down the line at one time, that's going to block up a line no matter what, whether it has a structural defect or not. So it's that level of abuse that could ever cause a belly that tiny to ever act up. It would be almost entirely a homeowner's doing if a blockage occurs in a spot like that. So anyhow, all the pipe here appears to be in good condition and intact. Again, I would like to see the bellied area cleaned out just to make sure there's nothing hiding underneath any of the buildup there that's being obscured by debris. But thus far, I don't see anything obvious going on there whatsoever. Just a little bit of settling. Plastic pipe can settle to a large extent without ever breaking or causing problems in that regard. So, as the line currently sits, it is a functioning sewer line, draining slower than it should, though. There's a lot of buildup in that belly. This is one worthwhile cleaning. You've got about an inch thick buildup on either side of that flow line there. So, after cleaning, you'll have much improved flow, and just get it rescoped to show the work there.